sing different tunes that go together rather well.
Okay, gentlemen, I'm going to leave you to it. I've got an eye on you. I haven't disappeared, but just so that we, in sake of sound, and you're actually recording now, so I'll play you a little later. That may be helping as well. So where you
Thank you, Keith.
Well, we're live, Richard.
Morning, Phil.
Good morning to you and
Yeah,
to whoever has had the patience to watch us this morning.
Well, I have the patience to watch you, Phil, I've got to say. But before we talk law, let me ask you this. A lively debate in the Barton family the evening. Which was the more iconic cultural figure, Dolly Parton or Tim?
I said, yeah, your picture is not red hot this morning.
Yeah, let me back.
Okay.
Hello,
Hello,
Richard.
Phil, again. I don't know what happened there, but there we go.
Well, it just was me on my own. The reception for you today is very bad.
Well, and for you, to be honest, so don't blame me. Anyway, the question I was asking was, who for you was more culturally important, Dolly Parton or Tim Curry? Now, I may be asking a man of the wrong generation about that. I don't know.
I've never been a fan of Dolly Parton. And
right.
Who is Tim Curry?
This is what I was fearful of when I thought I'd ask you the question. Tim Curry was the man who played Frank Infurter in the original play and film concerning that, and then went on to have an acting career doing other things as well, but in particular as the sweet transvestite from transsexual Transylvania. A very handsome man who played camp. He wasn't, well, he was camp, that's all he was camp, but played it beautifully. And is a sort of cultural icon, I think. You know, so for example, my daughters know him very well, know of him very well from his work. And he went on and did lots of other things. And then sadly had a stroke and ended up in a wheelchair about 15 years ago. And as a consequence, never worked as an actor again. He was a voice artist after that.
Right, that's sad.
Very, very significant. I think he was born in Warrington, so you know you must have something in common with him, Phil.
Well, your ex-colleague, my ex-colleague, now a recorder, soon to be a judge, I imagine, big tall lad from your old chambers, whose name escapes me, but he was from Warrington.
Alan
Gardner, that's him. Alan Gardner.
But I think I think it's an interesting question. Which of the two of them have had a greater cultural impact, in particular in this country? Whether it's the Rocky Horror Picture Show, which still plays and people go and watch it at cinemas, and they dress up and they join in. It's just an extraordinary cultural phenomenon. And he was undoubtedly the star of that. Susan Sarandon played the female lead, but he was
I do know who she is, because she was in, for example, Thelma and Louise.
Exactly. Yes. And I think Rocky Horror might have been one of her early breakthrough pieces. I'll be corrected on that.
Not by me, because I didn't know she was involved in that.
No. And you didn't like Dolly?
Not really. I didn't like her style at all, and she was just too sort of Midwest brassy American,
Did you ever hear about all the work she did with children's literacy?
That is what I only learned about yesterday.
Oh,
but it wasn't just literacy. It wasn't just literacy. It was nutrition.
Yeah.
She poured millions of dollars into feeding deprived families.
Yeah, and
so that's more like it. That's wonderful stuff.
An extraordinary woman. Yeah. Anyway, enough of our walk back in culture. Let's talk law. And Phil, I thought this week we might just do a roundup for our one man and his dog who watches us and listens to us. I've got the dog here.
Well, let's hope there's a man somewhere.
Well, that's you, I think, Phil. I think that's probably it.
Well, that's a great compliment coming from you.
Mannish. I thought we could just do a little roundup of recent events in the courts, because we haven't really done one of those for a while.
No.
And so I'm going to ask you to, do you want to start in Australia?
Yes, I'll like to start in Australia.
Well, piss off then. Go on. Off you go.
I've started, so I'll finish. A little place called Morwell, Morwell, in a very sleepy region of Australia, very southeast of Melbourne, near the coast, in fact, called Gippsland, Gipps land, became the centre of what people have described as a perfect storm, because firstly, it hosted the trial of a now convicted murderess called Erin Patterson, who decided to poison her ex-husband's relatives, whom she'd invited for a beef Wellington, within which she had placed the most poisonous mushrooms on earth, the location of which she had researched rigorously online, and also using her mobile phone to track their location. So the 4 guests, 3 died, and 1 is still very seriously ill after the effects of the poisoning. Now, when the trial began, there was obviously massive media interest and local interest, but the problem was that the area was also hosting an international table tennis competition, and Morwell and its environs are very remote, very small, very sleepy, and there aren't that many hotels because it's not a touristy place. So the combination of the two led to huge accommodation problems, which reflected on the participants in the trial, in particular the jury and the police, not so much the witnesses, but the jury and the police, and they had to be housed in the same hotel. Now, they were on entirely different floors, and it is claimed now that there was no contact, no collusion, no contamination of the jury. The defence disagree, and they've recently appealed her conviction on a number of points, but that's the main one, that there was a potential miscarriage of justice. We can't prove that there was any malicious contact or damaging contact, but using common sense, it must have happened somewhere along the line.
So it's one of those cases of saying we're not saying bad things have happened, but it could look as if bad things has happened, and that's enough.
Well, it's the old saying that you and I know: justice must be seen to be done.
Yes, quite.
And the court, the appeal court, has not yet ruled as to whether there was sufficient doubt about the ethics of the thing to order a retrial, because that's what the defence are asking for.
Yes.
They were also asking for the exclusion of evidence used at the original trial. For example, the mobile phone evidence and Google type evidence of her research into the existence of the level of toxicity of and where these mushrooms were, which is where she got them from.
But that's just something that in this country would be admitted.
Yes, and it was admitted in Australia.
Yeah.
And the few bits I've read about the appeal court's reaction to these points, they appear to have been really rather dismissive of the defence.
Right.
Which I can understand. They were actually quite, the presiding judge was really quite dismissive about the idea of there being any jury problem.
Yes.
He basically said, so what?
Yeah.
Have you any proof of this? Do you have any actual, usually when we get jury problems, there's a reason. There's another juror who says this or that, and there's public contamination. But have you any evidence of this? And of course they haven't. So my money is on them dismissing the appeal, actually.
Right.
Now, the prosecution were also appealing her sentence.
Yes.
She was given a life sentence with a tariff, which you and I know means it's a minimum term you spend inside.
It was quite hefty, wasn't it?
Sorry?
It was quite hefty, the tariff.
Yes, it slipped my mind. I think it was well into the late 20s, maybe 30s.
I think it's 33 years. I think something like that.
Right.
Yes.
Well, you will know these things. However, even though she's well into late middle age and may well still spend the rest of her life inside within that 33-year period, the prosecution are still appealing the sentence as being unduly lenient because they think her crimes are so heinous that she should have a whole life sentence, which means you get no parole. So that's their sort of counterclaim. So neither limb, defence or prosecution of the appeals, have been ruled upon yet, and there's no date for that ruling.
It's just thinking about it in this country, it is vanishingly rare that a jury are sequestered in that way into a hotel nowadays.
Well, it
used to happen quite regularly.
Yes.
But nowadays, the courts will avoid it insofar as they can, and only really in cases where there's a risk of jury tampering is anything like that.
You've hit on the irony there. The whole irony of this is that the intention of putting them in a hotel completely separate from the world, was to prevent the very thing the defence are alleging.
Yes.
It was just that there was this snafu, as they called it. I'd never heard that word before, but this snarl up of accommodation needs.
Yes. Yeah, I do remember a case from Kent going back a number of years where a member of my chambers, now sadly dead, who was involved in it, where the jury were sent to a hotel room having not reached a verdict because it was a sort of gangland hit, and there was concern that the jury would be nobbled in some way, and they duly convicted. And then it came to light some considerable time later where a couple of the jurors said, we feel a bit uncomfortable about this because when we were in the hotel overnight, the other jurors said, well, we can solve this issue of whether this happened or not. We can have a seance.
Yeah, the Ouija board.
And we can ask the deceased with a Ouija board as to who did it. And you think, well, why didn't you say that immediately that happened? Laugh. Why didn't you just say, sorry, this is wrong? Yes, but there are always those risks, aren't there, I suppose, with jurors.
Well, another little spin-off of the mushroom murderer is that in 1966, an author called Thomas Cullinan wrote a book called Beguiled. And The Beguiled was about a wounded Union soldier in their Civil War who was found by a small school packed with teachers and girls. And instead of handing him over, they took him in to heal him, to get him better, to then hand him over. And bit by bit, he inveigled himself so badly into all of their lives. He had affairs, sex with a number of them. He split them. He was utterly divisive. And in the end, they decided to get rid of him. And they got rid of him by serving him toxic mushrooms in a meal. That was made into a film in 1971. Starring Clint Eastwood as the soldier and produced and directed by Don Siegel. I do wonder whether this lady had seen that film and maybe gave you the idea, who knows? But anyway, that's a little spin-off.
It's always claimed, isn't it, that poison is the woman's method of murder.
Very much so.
As opposed to physical assault.
Can we disagree with that? I don't think we can disagree with that.
No, I think there's... Yeah, I think there's something in it anyway. But I tend to agree with you. I don't think either of the appeals in the Australian case are going to get anywhere.
Oh, I see. You don't think the whole life will go? I'll be...
No.
I don't know whether you get an echo, but of course, the last woman to be hanged publicly outside. Okay, you can't hear me, but I think the audience can. The last woman to be hanged outside Lewis Jail in about 1850 was the Onion Pie.
There we go. Philip, he's talking about something that he witnessed as a cub reporter in 1850. So, you can't hear us, Phil. Right, well, that's a terrible shame. Because I can hear myself, oddly enough, because I've got ears and a mouth and things like that. Shall I just keep talking, Phil, until they get you back on board? Anyway, dear, lovely, beautiful audience, it's the Richard Show, which I'm sure you're glad to see and hear for once. Phil, he's great. It's a bit like Mike and Bernie Winters, isn't it? You know, it's a bit like Little and Large, a bit like Morecambe and Wise. You know, one of us has got the skill, and the other one is just sort of there for the trip. And Phil is certainly somebody who does trip quite often. I wanted to talk today, assuming I'm still available to you all, about the issue of the infamous Daily Mail case, where a number of people, including Prince Harry, sued the Daily Mail for what they said was intrusion on their private life by the newspaper and its agents. And we've talked about this case before, because it went on for a number of weeks. And it ended up with the judge finding in the newspaper's favour. So Daily Mail and it's the company that owns it were exonerated completely, and all their claims were dismissed. Which ain't great, of course, because as we said at the time, it was going to be a pretty expensive job for whoever lost that case, one way or the other. Well, what's happened this last week is interesting, because it's really exceptional, and a variety of news outlets have said it's exceptional because it truly is. Because normally what happens is that in a civil case, where one side wins, the other side are ordered to pay their costs, and that process can take many months. And there are people called costs judges, who are little grey old men who sit in small rooms in the Royal Courts of Justice, very Dickensian, and listen to arguments as to how much the cost should be. And there are members of the bar, I find this extraordinary, who specialize in costs as their specialism, as their topic. Now, I would rather, frankly, have my eyebrows plucked than have to do that job. But there are people who do it. But unlike the normal case where that happens, so months later, there's a calculation of the costs and what ought to be paid. This time, the original judge, you're back with us, Phil. It's good to see you.
I have been for a few minutes, yeah.
Yeah. This judge used, as I said, what was an exceptional provision, where he said, right, there will be a costs hearing in due course later in the year. But in the meantime, the failed complainants, Prince Harry, Elton John, et al., have to pay £9.54 million up front. And they have to do so by, in fact, what will be tomorrow, Friday. Now, it so rarely happens. And he did it because he took such a dim view of their litigation, of the merits of what they were trying to argue, that he felt it's a punishment for them that they have to pay. Now, you and I, unlike Phil, don't have £9.5 million in our back pockets.
No. I haven't got 9.5 pence in my back pocket, actually.
Thank you. That's good to know. And but they can pay it, apparently. They do.
Well, that's extraordinary.
Yeah.
Particularly Harry.
No, he's got millions.
Obviously so.
Yeah. But they.
I never ever did civil law.
Yeah.
You did. I never did. But I thought the basic principle about costs was they shouldn't be punitive.
Exactly that. And that's why this is exceptional.
Yeah.
So it's not saying you have to pay more, but you have to pay a bit of it up front. Now, normally that might be an order that you'd make if you think someone's going to skip the country or something like that. That, there's a risk that they aren't good for the money in some way. But this judge clearly took against them so badly that he felt it appropriate just to say, no, you got to pay that now.
I remember you.
Sorry, you go ahead, Phil.
No, I remember you citing, as a conclusion, I remember you citing a similar type of case with an obviously partisan judge about the claim that Elvino's was sexist.
That's right, yes.
And he had clearly flouted the anti-discrimination laws or whatever.
Yeah.
And yet the first instance judge over the road at the Royal Courts brazenly found in favour of Elvino's.
Yes.
And was castigated, as I understand your anecdote, by the appeal court.
He was, and the little backstory of that is that he had been, this judge, a member of my old chambers in London.
Oh, right.
Where the then senior clerk used to drink every afternoon, schmoozing solicitors. That was his job. He didn't do anything other than take them to a wine bar.
Which is what Elvino's is.
Yeah. Pomeroy's to the fans of Rumpole.
Yeah.
And it was strongly suspected that the judge got a little word in his ear from his former senior clerk saying, can't let these women into the back bar, it's not right, is it? It's not right. And hence the judge.
It's just so true.
I know, yeah, but and went to the Court of Appeal, and the Court of Appeal said, "What's going on? This is rubbish." What's he thinking about? Well, he's thinking about his senior clerk, who no doubt had talked to the management of Elvino, who very much treated him as a valued customer, and the message got passed down the line to the judge, who did what he could to reach, frankly, a completely inappropriate conclusion. But there we go. Yeah, I'm afraid to say, we always think that the criminal courts are the ones where the devious things might happen because they're criminals after all, aren't they? That sort of thing. Oh no, the civil courts are full of them.
So you see, what that judge should have done, which brings me on to a topic we were going to cover a little time ago. Yeah. He should have excused himself or recused himself from hearing the case. Why should he have done that, Richard?
I don't know, because he thought he'd probably get away with it.
No, what I mean is, why should he have recused himself?
Well, because if he had some sort of even remote interest.
Yes.
Let's say, for example, I was involved in I'm not a judge, obviously, but I was involved as a judge litigating something about the Black Horse pub.
Yeah.
I just have to say, sorry, I'm not doing this case because one way or the other, it's just wrong of me to get involved. And
the word recuse is a rather legalistic word for a judge or a magistrate, somebody who is in judgment of a case or person who should withdraw, is a more common word, withdraw from the case because of potential conflicts of interest.
Yes, and it comes back to that point. It's not just, is there a conflict of interest? It's, might there be a perception of a conflict of interest?
Once again, we're back to justice being seen to be done.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
Now, I did a little bit of research about this because it is actually surprisingly rare in the criminal jurisdiction. I struggle to think of, I mean, over the years, 42 of them, I've heard applications now and then for a judge to step down. For example, he's tried the defendant before, and was not very nice to him in the first trial, stuff like that. But I got the impression that recusing was much more common on the other side of the fence, the civil and perhaps even the domestic litigation.
I think that's probably right, yes.
So, for example, there was a case of a High Court judge who was assigned a case whereby the pricing of Premier League football tickets was being assessed. And he disclosed that he was an Arsenal season ticket holder. In that case, all the barristers, all the litigators said that's fine. But there are other cases where High Court judges have very reluctantly recused themselves.
Yes. Phil, this is probably a topic for another whole broadcast, isn't it?
It can be. That was the idea. I just thought you me bringing in the Elvino example led me on to the concept of recusal. That's all.
Yeah. No, not at all. Right. What else has been in the news this week that may be of interest? I suppose there's that evolving tale of 7 people who died in a car crash up in the northeast, 2 of whom were police officers. Do you want to tell us about that, Phil?
Well, yes, this was on a major road called the A66 near Middlesbrough on Teesside, northeast England. And there was a police pursuit of a dark-coloured VW Passat that the police suspected was on false plates, false registration plates, and was involved in local organised crime. Well, the chase was called off because it was becoming too dangerous, and what the Passat driver did was enter the A66 dual carriageway the wrong way and drove at speed the wrong direction towards oncoming traffic. And the first car it smashed into was an armed police pursuit vehicle with 2 very experienced, dedicated police officers, highly trained. And they and all 5 of the occupants of the Passat are now dead.
Yes.
Now, there's been a lot of spin-offs since then. There have been a number of arrests to do with organised crime. Yeah. And there's also murder charges on the way for 2 men, thus far unidentified, who are suspected of killing by fire a woman and her niece in a house near the incident. Somewhat appallingly, in my view, obviously tributes were made to the police officers, about the police officers. There was a silent vigil at a local church and so on. But in a field near the site of the crash, emerged on the same day a rave-like event with teenagers all masked up, throwing flares, balloons into the air to celebrate the death of one of the people in the car, which, to say the least, divided opinion, and local residents were absolutely appalled. The police chose to monitor it, not to intervene, which I think was quite sensible. But there was one woman, you mentioned the Daily Mail, there was one woman interviewed by the Daily Mail, and she simply said, you know, it was only an accident. They didn't know there were police officers in that car. You know, these were lovely young men, caring young men. You can't just write them off as criminal scumbags, you know. That's why we're here. Now, I find that worrying, personally,
Yes.
that anybody would have that attitude. To call it an accident, it was not an accident.
No.
It was a deliberate, fast driving down a dual carriageway the wrong way.
Yes. No.
It's not accidental.
No, and I wholeheartedly agree with you in terms of the responsibility of certainly the driver of that car of 5.
Well, BBC fact checking has revealed on social media a number of TikTok videos.
Yes. Yes.
Of that group of men in a car doing well over 100 miles an hour off road.
Yes.
With people in the back, 3 of whom were 3 of the 5 doing the, you know, the signs, all the aren't we cool signs, and narrowly missing a school child in a park. So, to use our old phrase, Richard, they've got form for it.
Yes. And I don't seek to diminish that in any sense, but just looking at the other side, there are, as you and I know, Phil, rather strict rules about the circumstances in which police should and should not pursue a chase.
Yes.
Of course, it's a dynamic, very fast-moving situation. Officers on the ground have to make split-second decisions.
Yes.
But as I understand it, in this case, it was only 10 seconds before the crash that the chase got called off.
It is possible, but it's unclear at the moment. It is well, I have read that it was called off because they turned onto the wrong side of the road.
Yes.
So it sounds to me like it was called off because the police vehicle chasing, for its own safety, called off the pursuit.
Well, okay, there are a couple of questions there, I suppose. Just dealing with the immediate incident. Why weren't the 2 officers, armed officers, in the car where they died? Why weren't they notified? Because they could have been, by police radio straight away, that the car was coming in their direction down the wrong way of the road.
I can't answer that question. Nobody's telling me whether they were or whether they weren't.
No, and they ought to have been, clearly. But secondly,
all I know is that the Teesside police have referred themselves to the body that I forgot what it's called now, the regulatory body that assesses whether they were at fault or not.
Yes. But, you know, that's standard practice where anybody dies in an incident like that, which in some way involved the police. But secondly, and just standing back from this, because the case has sort of, as far as the public are concerned, has evolved over the last few days. Started as, you know, old group of kids in a car, blah, blah, blah. And it's now become apparent that, in fact, this was a sophisticated police operation seeking to break up an organized crime group in the area of which they thought these youngsters were part. In which case, isn't there a level of incompetence there in securing all the people you know, if it's a go type situation where the police are told to move in and arrest people, then I don't really understand how this group of lads were allowed to get away in the way that they were, and why that wasn't managed better. sorry, I'm not. As I said, I fully accept what you say about the youngsters themselves and their hideous conduct, but I find it slightly concerning that the police really didn't think it through properly.
Well, it occurred to me in similar vein that there should have been some barrier formed.
Yeah.
At the end of that route, going onto that dual carriageway, whereby they simply stopped the car.
Yeah.
that
Because there
didn't
are these stinger things, aren't there, that they could put out?
There are the stinger things. They're not actually as effective as you think they are. And of course, there was other people on the road, parked vehicles, I mean, as you highlighted, it's making split-second decisions in very, very acute circumstances.
Yes.
But I take your point. And I also think, though it's been denied, I think those armed coppers were part of it.
Oh,
I don't think it is a coincidence they were on that road.
No. Of course they were part of it,
But that's been denied, apparently.
I know.
Which I find hard to accept.
But I imagine
sheer coincidence that at that very point, in that very area, there are two highly trained armed response units.
Yes.
Policemen. It's too much of a coincidence to me.
Yes. And I know that in fact the number of armed officers who have the training and the ability to carry firearms in any given police force is in fact quite small.
Very small.
That's
another part of the tragedy, that this is wiped out. Sorry to be so vulgar. Two highly experienced, dedicated, highly skilled armed police officers.
Yes.
One of whom served in Iraq.
That's right. Yes.
These were good guys.
Yeah.
Terrible.
I suppose obviously we will have to wait for the decision of, as you say, the police investigation of it. There won't be any trial, of course, because of those people, because they're dead. But there will be, as you say, almost certainly trials of others who are part of an organized crime group, or allegedly so, and those who were involved in the awful arson attack on a house, which the police haven't said in terms is linked, but it very much sounds that it would be a remarkable coincidence if it wasn't.
Yes, I mean they've used the rather stock phrase, "We're keeping an open mind."
Yeah.
Now, Richard, I've been on considerably longer, I'm afraid, than I intended.
Yeah.
Because we started.
Yes.
At 8:45, and then things went wrong.
Yeah.
So, unless there's anything else you think we should urgently discuss, I'd be grateful to leave you after 45 minutes.
No, that's absolutely fine, Phil. I think we've, the only two things that I've got on my little list here are the Lindsay Clancy 3-child murder case down under, where she's the mother who, it appears, has admitted killing her 3 children, but says it was due to some psychiatric condition.
I read about that. Yeah, sorry.
And interestingly, they've said, right, the court is going to leave a lesser offence. And you and I know that in this country, judges leave lesser offences even when the parties don't want it to happen.
Yep.
And that started in Sussex, in fact, oddly enough.
Right.
Yeah.
Richard Brown.
Exactly.
You mean the conspiracy stuff? Yeah.
Yeah.
The animal rights case.
No. I'm talking about Coots.
Oh, Coots. Yeah.
Murder of Jane Longhurst. Yeah, where the judge didn't leave manslaughter as a lesser alternative, and went all the way to the House of Lords, and we had to have a retrial, which, well, I get, Another thing I was just wanted to mention is that the government are announcing this rather odd new provision where offenders for serious sex and violence offences are going to have their area where they can move around severely limited. And
totally unworkable.
That's exactly my view. Exactly.
You and I know that.
Yeah.
As if the probation people and the police at that level haven't got enough to do. It's just ridiculous.
No, exactly. There are already, of course, as you and I know, post-conviction, even post-acquittals.
Yes.
There can be orders made.
Absolutely.
Preventing
restraint orders. Yeah.
Exactly. So people can't be in contact with the victims, or indeed going to certain areas. So I'm not quite sure what this adds, other than, as you say, dumping a load of extra work on already overworked probation officers. But
well, as the weekly periodical that I subscribe to pointed out, this is our new unmandated Prime Minister saying a lot, much of which is completely impracticable.
Yes, and saying it because people want to hear it, but it's not.
Correct.
It's not. It isn't going to work. Yes.
It isn't going to work, Richard.
No. And neither are you, Phil.
No, I never did work.
No, it never knowingly worked.
Never knowingly worked.
Yeah.
You knew me well.
Are you going off to sign on then? Is that right now? Is that what's happening?
I'm late.
Yeah.
So I'll bid you farewell.
All right, lovely to see you, Phil. I'm going to go away as well. Okay, take care, pal.
Listen, you hear me all right?
Yes,
thank you.
Yeah, and now I'm sure it was the weather, because your picture is perfect and the sound is perfect. You and Phil have been carrying on a conversation as if everything's okay. So I'm afraid we just have to be careful about thunderstorms.
Yes, right. Anyway, we've done our bit.
And I think the conversation this morning was absolutely fascinating, particularly about the crash and what's going on there. I mean, can you just recap on that? You think that the two policemen were somehow connected to criminals?
No, they weren't
connected.
They were part of the squad who were on that day trying to take down an organised crime group. Otherwise, you wouldn't have armed officers. So the suggestion that it's just a coincidence that they were driving on that road time is rubbish. But who knows? It's horrible tragedy. But I think somebody in the police will need to explain how the plan of that overall to bring down this whole crime group went so badly wrong. Because it's led to seven people in the crash, and potentially a woman and a child in the arson.
Yeah.
And that doesn't sound like a very good result if you're trying to avoid harming people whilst collecting serious criminals. But there we go.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Richard. That's a fascinating morning. And I see you've got Jazz with you this morning.
Oh yes.
He's just.
Yeah, he's.
I think he's needed about the raised now, so.
That's where we're doing.
Well, don't go into the Black Horse in case you're compromised.
Bad boy, kid.
See you soon.
All right. Speak soon.
Bye.